Hello and welcome to The Spark. I'm Matt, and by the grace of the Nashville Public Library, I'm here to talk about the creative process and the joy of appreciating the creations of others. Thankfully, I'm not going to do it alone. Joining me today are members of Nashville Public Library's in-house puppetry team, Wishing Chair Productions, Brett and Brian.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Always good to spotlight all the many varied things we do in the library system.
Absolutely. Quite a bit.
So if for anyone not familiar, would y'all want to introduce what Wishing Chair Productions is and your roles within it?
Absolutely. So my name is Brett Wilson. I'm the program manager for Wishing Chair Productions. Wishing Chair Productions is the in-house puppetry troupe for the Nashville Public Library. The library has a rich tradition of storytelling through the puppetry arts. They go all the way back to 1938 with Tom Tishner. And the library, through that initial engagement with Tom Tishner, has lasted almost 90 years of storytelling magic, and we are part of that continuance, and it's a pleasure to be part of that.
And my name is Brian Waltman. I go by Uncle Walt, and I'm part of the Puppet Truck. I'm one of the puppeteers on the Puppet Truck. And basically, the Puppet Truck goes around to preschools, elementary schools, residence facilities, and we bring books to life through puppetry arts.
So this episode will be going up roundabout on either side of Tom Tishner's birthday. So
Wonderful.
If we want to talk a little bit about his contributions to puppetry at large, his connection to the library.
Absolutely. So Tom Tishner, as you can imagine, he's a big deal for the Nashville Public Library. 15-year-old student at Hume Fall came to the library. He had fostered a relationship with the librarians up until that ask to put on his very first puppet show. That was, like I said, in 1938. And when they said yes, that was the start of that magic. His first production was Puss in Boots, and that was just the beginning of storytelling here at the library. He committed his entire life to the puppetry arts, presenting different presentations in the library all the way up until his retirement until 1988. During his time, he had puppets on Broadway, the Broadway musical Carnival. He had a radio broadcast series. He was a television writer. He also had puppets on television. And in his lifetime, he created hundreds upon thousands of different characters, houses. He opened up his home during special times of during the December season to just showcase his love of puppetry and storytelling. And many native Nashvillians, they remember that opportunity to go into his home and see his beautifully decorated rooms as he would make creations all year round. Yeah. So he was always at work.
And he did children's programming like across the state, if I understand correctly.
Absolutely, absolutely. He just didn't stay in Nashville, of course. Memphis, different cities throughout the state. And he, of course, during his time during World War II, he worked within the film industry within, I believe, the Army. But he never forgot about his connection to the library or his love of reading or his love of puppetry.
Yeah. And a significant amount of his puppets are donated to the library, correct?
That is correct. We still, to this day, utilize a lot of the puppets, the Tishner puppets, in our collection.
I was going to ask, how are they constructed and out of what materials that they're still that usable?
So the puppets, Tishner, he's known for using a lot of fabric. A lot of the puppets are fabric-based. Their bodies are usually stuffed with batten, and then, of course, the wooden control bars. If there's anything that we have to replace, usually it's the strings. He, many years ago, he utilized cobbler's thread. Now we use fishing line, black fishing line for our puppets. As you can imagine, it holds different weights. But the restringing of the puppets and the utilizing of the control bars pretty much keeps the puppets, as we use them today, as intact as possible as when Tishner. We have a climate-controlled room here at the library that keeps the puppets at the appropriate temperature so that they don't deteriorate.
Mm.
And we are always mindful to give the puppets the greatest care. As you can imagine, on the puppet truck, they perform anywhere between 1 and 3 shows a day,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday. They have a 6-month commitment at the branches for community celebration. So over time, as you can imagine, the puppets can wear down, but we're very, very mindful about trying to preserve the puppets as best we can so we can hand it off to the next generation.
Yeah.
One of the joys I get using the Tishner puppets is we'll go to residence senior centers, and there's a magic in performing and watching the seniors just kind of melt into a child. But they will often come up to us afterwards and just go, I remember seeing those puppets. They literally, it just takes them back to a place in time. And so using Tishner's puppets just is another piece of magic in the storytelling, especially when you're dealing with some older folks.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So was Titchener mainly a marionette style construction that he worked with, or sort of across the board?
What we have in the collection is a combination of hand puppets and Tishner's marionettes.
Gotcha.
And when we talk about marionettes or even the hand puppets, you're going to find a little bit of everything. You're going to find birds. You're going to find chickens. You're going to find dogs. He has a lot of bears, but you also have knights or royalty, things of that nature. But all of these, of course, are based on books or scripts that he originally created. So you're going to find a wide variety of different characters that even to this day that we can utilize in creating some of the newer stories or looking back to the stories that he used.
Yeah.
And he didn't create just the puppets themselves. It was set pieces as well. And there are examples of some of the houses and things that he's built that are in the library. See, around the library in various places.
It's amazing that, especially when you look at Tishner's, his earlier years, his family members, teachers, they really did spot a unique ability within Tom Tishner to create. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about, even to our audiences today, is that you don't have to have expensive materials to do the same exact thing. If you have cardboard, if you have glue, if you have markers, you too can create something that's really special and magical. Because that's exactly what he did, and we have examples to prove it.
Yeah, and that's the story you always hear about Jim Henson making the original Kermit out of his mother's coat and a ping pong ball or what have you.
That's exactly it.
Right. And I have lots of other things I want to talk about with Wishing Chair, but before we get any deeper, what are y'all's personal histories with puppetry that led you to this as like an industry and to the library?
Well, I'm actually one of the newest ones on the team. So I've been with the company about 2.5 years. And prior to that, my background is in radio, TV production, audiovisual support in universities. And I decided as I'm getting a little older in years, I wanted to do something fun, something a little more rewarding. And so I just kind of, in my past, I had worked in children's ministry doing hand-mouth puppets with my children. But just, through ministry and through a little bit of weekend work. So when this opportunity as a part-timer popped up, I applied. And I also have a background I'm a clown. So I've been doing that for 27 years.
Awesome.
So entertaining children is just something that's comes easily to me. And so I wanted to do that. And so I figured the puppets and clowning and even audiovisual production would kind of make a nice marriage.
Yeah.
So I've really only been doing puppets steadily for about 2.5 years. And I get to learn from people like Mr. B and the rest of the people on the team.
Yeah. Have you found that the skill set of being clown and like that sort of physical comedy has translated into puppetry?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you're a really good clown, you try to communicate without talking.
Right.
So the body movements, expressing yourself through movement and how to get the puppet to express sadness or whatever, this is the same way as if you would do it with your body as a clown and not speak. So I found that some of that just kind of melds very well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
My experience, I received my degree in theater performance with a focus in fight choreography
Oh, wow.
for stage and film. And as you can imagine, being a theater performer, they teach you a little bit of everything. I also, part of that fight choreography was advanced movement. And that includes mime and a different form of puppetry, which you would normally see in carnival or the large body extension puppets where you're putting on harnesses and things like that. And working as a theater performer before even coming back to the library, I traveled the country, was doing professional theater, and being a Nashville native, I knew about the program. I knew about Tom Tischner, knew about Wishing Chair, and when the opportunity came up, never thought that I would ever utilize this part of my degree, that I would ever revisit that form of puppetry. But when the opportunity came up, I once again applied and haven't looked back since. So,
No, and to your point of the sort of more rewarding and fun side, when I had my orientation not that long ago, one of the other new folks in that orientation was joining your team. And we wound up having like our little box lunch together out in the courtyard in between sessions of orientation, got talking about what led us here. And for her, the idea that she could be a full-time puppeteer at a place where every puppet show is free, like there is no barrier to the audience apart from getting to a library or the truck coming to you, was just a deeply enviable experience for her.
The Nashville Public Library has and possesses a very special gift. It's a jewel in that the citizens, the administration, the people, the powers that be, they have seen firsthand the value of storytelling through the puppetry arts and the impact that it has made on the lives of children, to inspire them to read, to engage the library. And the puppets, they are a fantastic gatekeeper for reading. And to be able to offer this, as you mentioned, to anyone and everyone, any organization, any institution that has that same commitment to literacy, they can also engage in that storytelling magic for free that has existed here since Tom Tischner started. So you're absolutely right.
I want to piggyback on that real quick.
Yes, please.
Because when I decided that I wanted to apply for the position, I came to a show and I was instantly grabbed by the magic and the wonder and the way and the professionalism and the way in which they told the stories. So it's a way to grab the imagination, if you will, of those who are viewing the puppet show. And so it affected me and made me want to apply even more because I was like, I want to do this. So I just think it's something very special that Nashville has.
Yeah, and it does make a lot of sense in a very performance-heavy city, right? For that to be a sort of natural segue.
Absolutely. I've always enjoyed stories. And, you think, as you get older, you want the stories and the things that you do to have an impact on the lives of your audience. And coming from theater performance, I've done musicals, I've done a little bit of everything, but being able to offer shows to children, to maybe the smallest citizens in the city, to be able to give them something that will expand their horizons, to broaden their minds, to provide them something from another culture, because our shows, they vary. I mean, we have everything from the world of Mother Goose all the way to William Shakespeare. So to be able to deliver this to that sector of our city, to be able to offer that, really, it's gratifying because you're pouring into the next generation and potentially inspiring future puppeteers, because the goal really is to hand this off to the next generation so it will last another, 90 years.
To that point, and in y'all's experience, what kind of audiences are drawn to puppetry? Like, why is that very often a specific association with children?
For the library, and Uncle Walt mentioned this earlier, the puppet truck goes to assisted living facilities. And as you can imagine, we have story times here at the library, we have main stage shows, and we have families come in. And I'm talking entire family units. So
Right.
we have the mothers, we have the fathers, we have sometimes the nannies, we have the grandparents. And I like to say that if you like a good story, regardless of your age, you're going to enjoy this. You're going to enjoy the experience. We have a show that we developed with our good friends at the Nashville Jazz Workshop. It's called Ellingtown. It's an introduction to jazz, features the music of Duke Ellington. And we perform that for assisted living facilities throughout the city. And as you can imagine, it's that generation that remembers the music. So individuals who normally don't move, who are maybe wheelchair bound, will do things that connect them to their youth that some of the other residents they haven't seen. That's the power of story and music and the puppets, is that they make you forget and they invite you to go on a journey. And as long as you're willing to do that, any magical thing can happen. And it's not just that one. There are many examples of people being lost in that magic, storytelling magic, whether it be with music, whether it be through the different forms of puppetry that we use, because we have marionettes, we have hand puppets, but we also use rod puppets. We have shadow puppetry. We use bunraku. There's all different types and forms of puppetry that we utilize to tell the stories. And as long as they're willing to engage with us, we're willing to, of course, present them with something that allow them to take that leap, and that's the fun.
Could you describe what that last form of poetry you mentioned was?
Bunraku.
Yes.
Bunraku. Well, that's an Asian style of puppetry. And basically how it works is the puppeteer will don a mask, all right, and become dressed all in black, wearing gloves and a mask. And so the goal of that is to let the audience focus on the puppet.
Right.
So traditionally, bunraku, puppeteers would operate just like one body part, just the leg or the arm. Because we do it on the truck and there's limited puppeteers, we will operate more of the body parts of the puppet. But the idea of bunraku is to just completely disappear into the background and let the focus be generally only on the puppet.
Although your body is like theoretically fully above stage, fully visible.
Fully visible.
Right.
Just you're dressed all in black, and the black mask that we wear is a mesh, so we can still see and breathe through it, see the other puppeteers what they're doing, see the audience's reaction. It's just that we kind of try to fade into the background by wearing all black, even though we're very fully visible.
Right. Yeah, and to that point, kind of all forms of storytelling involve a certain amount of suspension of disbelief, right? Like whether that's allowing yourself to read words on a page and accept them as like a sort of temporary reality. And Brett, as you mentioned, when people come to these shows, they have to sort of accept what's happening, right? That they have to allow themselves to be in it, even though in a lot of these cases, not only do you know these are puppets, sometimes you can see the performer. As you said, the audience has to accept what's happening.
Yes.
You have to suspend your disbelief. But are there things that you will do to make that easier on the audience?
I would say, as I'm thinking about the question, I'm literally running across in my mind all the different shows.
Yeah.
And as I'm taking the question and I'm going through all the different shows, I want to make sure in my mind that the question does it apply as it applies to the different shows. I believe that my answer is yes, is that we do in some way in the crafting of the music, in the stylizing of the sets, we try to make it as graceful, as beautiful, and as accepting, the moment the production starts. There are times, of course, when we are offering productions where it's a blank canvas. And it's only when that is the necessity for the show, and that is probably, that revolves around the structure of the story and how it's presented. But generally, I would say that most of all the productions give the audience a basic understanding of what they're getting into, whether it be from the initial backdrops, from the scenery pieces that are set up, to pre-show music that we have established to get people in the mood or in the mindset of where they're going to go.
Right.
Even if it's subconscious, those little clues are there.
Yeah, and even the entering of a theater space is in and of itself entering a new and distinct space.
Absolutely. And you get that experience when you come into the children's theater, because we have a lot of different opportunities to stylize in each production. That does change on the puppet truck, of course, because there is one basic platform, depending on the show, of course, but there are different pieces that can be added or taken away to accentuate the idea or the theme of the show. There is care that is taken into providing a small taste to the audience to get them prepared. But once that starts, I think and believe they're willing to run with what's presented.
I think to add on to that, the puppet show, some of the shows that are developed for the children's theater are then transferred to the truck. And even though those pieces of care that Mr. B was talking about still follow to the truck, but because the puppeteers from the puppet truck, when we perform, we're generally visible in most of the shows that we do. And I think there's some thought process behind that to encourage people who might be interested in puppetry or curious about how, like if you have a proscenium, you're not going to see the puppeteers, right? But on the puppet truck, we're pretty much fully visible depending upon the show. So you can see us bringing the puppets, like we're over the top of the stage. So you can see our upper body and our hand movements moving the puppets during the show. But I don't think that takes away from the belief. I don't think it suspends any of the belief. I think it adds another layer of curiosity for those who might be interested in the technical piece of it and how does this happen?
Just along with that, this is, this art form, being a puppeteer, it's pretty rare in this country, especially when you're working with marionettes. We know Jim Henson and the Henson, the hand and rod puppets that they utilize. But using marionettes in the United States, I mean, it's not a very common thing. So, as we produce and as we create our shows, this is a teaching opportunity for young minds to see cooperation, collaboration, how we're able to manipulate puppets and to come together, whether it be 2 puppeteers or 3 puppeteers or even 4 or 5 puppeteers, how individuals can work together to accomplish something that is greater than themselves. And by opening, as we do, following the shows, opening the floor for questions, we're able to engage young minds and answer those questions so that the hope is that when they go home or when they go out into the library, they check out books that will answer those questions and further that curiosity so that they too can figure out how they can, with maybe their brothers or their sisters or with their neighbors or their friends, work together to create their own stories. Because there's wealth. There's a vast amount of knowledge, wealth, and wisdom within a story.
And being part of this centuries-old tradition that
Absolutely.
is cross-cultural in so many ways.
Absolutely.
And in terms of visibility of the puppeteer in a lot of instances, you can tell where a lot of my puppet background is focused because I keep pulling Jim Henson quotes. But there's a quote that he's said multiple times in interviews where he's done, late night or he did do late night talk shows where he himself is fully visible and Kermit or Rolf are fully visible, and someone will ask him is that a problem? And he says, well, no, because the puppet's much more interesting to look at. Kermit will say, well, no one's paying attention to the bearded man. They're looking at the colorful frog.
That's it.
But the awareness of the bearded man being present does allow for that mechanic to be understood, because I think there's a undersung value in allowing an audience to understand how a thing was made and see that there are humans behind it. So maybe they'll approach that piece of art a little more empathetically than if it's just something that you're so concerned about immersion that you only see the product and not the person behind it.
You know, there's some of our productions, you know, they require a lot of shielding. You know, sometimes we're running or moving very, very quickly. That can draw someone's attention away from important moments.
Sure.
And we definitely want to keep that in mind, but you don't need that much. A person's attention can get locked into something that moves and breathes and has a desire to have a connection with an audience, to speak, to share insight. It's very liberating. Puppets, it's been my experience that they are who they are. You know, it's very obvious to children when they see stories who the villain is. It comes across very, very clearly, versus who the family members are in their particular roles. It becomes very, very clear to the children who is someone who is cared upon, who is someone who's to be mistrusted. Those come across very, very cleanly. And very seldomly do you find a character, unless they're learning a lesson,
Right.
do they flip-flop or go back and forth. And I think that speaks to the purity of puppetry, is that they have that unique ability to zone into and tune into our imaginations, which then allows us to accept them on a completely higher level.
And do you find that extends to your performing of them as well? That, like, you see the design and the feel of the puppet and go, oh, I know how they should act.
That's a huge responsibility, because when you have that connection and when you understand what this precious character is, you don't want to betray it in the minds of your audience. You want to be able to, for them, but also for us as being responsible puppeteers, you want to be able to present them in the most honest, purest way so that they can establish themselves within the minds of the audience.
Yeah, I think when someone is viewing a puppet, they look at the character, and once you've performed that character as the puppet, right, then there's a certain expectation of, okay, this is how this character will act or react in this situation. And that's the job of the puppeteer, is to make the action and reaction appropriate. So you're not going to fly a puppet that you just walked on stage. That's not going to make sense so you want to be true to that character's persona.
Yeah. So having joined the team fairly recently, and you said your previous puppetry background, what you had was hand puppet. When you entered, was there a sort of gauntlet of learning the different types of puppetry, or puppetry, or is it just like, here's the show that's coming up, you learn this now?
Basically, when I started, it was, hi, welcome aboard. Here's a marionette. I'd never picked up a marionette before. So there was an intimidation factor that I first felt, worried about dropping it. And often, if somebody gets to try a marionette, that's one of the first things you're concerned with, because if I drop it, it's going to get tangled. So getting over that initial fear of just handling the puppet on strings, and then figuring out how those strings work. But the training really was, for me, in my particular instance, was this: welcome aboard. Here's the show we're working on. And the way that it was set up is you learn a track. The track, I'm good to say this, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. The track doesn't necessarily involve one part, if you will. So you're not just Hansel and Gretel. The way that the script and the choreography happens, the puppeteers, as Mr. B alluded to earlier, they collaborate, they cooperate. So it's like a choreography. So you learn, okay, in this moment, I'm Hansel, right? But I have to hand Hansel off to the other puppeteer. Now I'm Gretel or the witch or whatever. So it's also knowing how that person was playing that part so that you don't betray that character of that puppet.
Yeah.
But it's and it's learning to just know when to do things at the right time. So even the handing off of the control bars, it took some getting used to, because you have to twist your wrists in different ways.
Yeah.
To grab a puppet that somebody's holding this way, you have to be able to grab it so that you can spin it back around. And so it was learning the particular show for me. And then also in learning the show, learning how to control the character, control the puppet.
That's fascinating. I hadn't considered the possibility, because like any theater production, typically you're going to have far fewer humans than parts, right? Usually there's a lot of quick changes and you know, people playing various kinds of background characters at different times of the show. I hadn't considered the idea that a marionette can literally just be passed, where
Yes.
like, again, most of my background is watching Sesame Street or Muppets, and the idea that like there are often more than one person involved, where like if you see 2 hands on Fozzie, there are 3 hands involved.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the idea that most Muppets are left-handed, quote unquote, because the right hand is in the mouth. That would be a much more difficult operation to pass off a hand puppet than a marionette. That's fascinating.
Absolutely, especially when that passing takes place directly in front of the audience. The puppet still is alive, and it still must exist in that moment. And believe it or not, the strings, they tell everything. If you sneeze, that sneeze is going to reverberate all the way down. So you have to be very, very mindful of every single thing that you're doing when you're holding on to the puppets. One of the fun things that I love, especially for because I remember my first time holding a marionette. It's something that you have to develop within your body. The puppets, and that whether it be the Tischners or the Picos or any of the newer creations, depending on the size, depending on the show, the puppet is going to weigh anywhere between maybe 5, maybe even 7 pounds if you're lucky.
Right.
But imagine holding 5 and 7 pounds away from the center of your body for 30 minutes. You're going to start to feel it in different places, the knees, the shoulders, the back. So breathing, being able to stay focused, and making sure your hands stay steady. Because once your body starts to do things, the strings will start to tell the audience. And that may not be something they want to know. So it's fun being able to develop as a puppeteer. The more you do it, the stronger at it you get, the more confident you feel as you pick up different characters. And because they're all different, it's a new challenge every single day. And it's fun to be able to make the characters live for myself, but also honor what you're receiving from someone else and carry that on. It's like a torch where we're just trying to get to the finish line. And it's fun when we do. And we get there quite often.
Yeah. Are there specific things that you do to like train your arms and hands, or is it literally just do more puppetry? It's like,
well, there was a puppeteer, John McSparron. He had the nifty idea to do push-ups before puppet shows.
Just right before.
Just right before.
Okay.
And he learned that, and it's fun, and I don't think he would mind me mentioning this, that after doing maybe 20, 30 push-ups, his hand started to shake. So, yeah, he cut that out pretty quick. I think the more you practice and the more you do it, the more your body is going to become attuned to it. We talk about, I mentioned breathing. It's always important to stay hydrated, to have your body prepared to engage in what you're doing. And I think that works out well. Stretching is always ideal, being able to be comfortable with what you're doing. But
one of the first things Mr. B told me, because I was like, well, how do you prepare for this? He's like, well, basically, I don't know if you remember this, but he's like, go home and hold out like 2 cans of soup and just stand there for the next half hour. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, because that's a start.
Right.
And that is a start, because I don't know, a can of soup is 16 ounces maybe, but if you get the chunky, maybe you get 32 ounces. But that's still not the weight of a 5-pound puppet.
Right.
But if you want to know what it feels like, seriously, stick out your hand and put a can of soup in it and just hold it there for a half hour while you're watching TV. And that'll give you an idea of what we're kind of doing for about a half an hour.
Yeah, that's Mr. Miyagi's School of Puppetry.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Soup.
I was watching a blooper reel from Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, a old Henson special, and they spent dozens of takes trying to get this one shot of a drum rolling across the stage. And at all that time, Frank Oz and I think Jerry Nelson, their arms are just up. They're just up through that stage, just waiting for that shot to get right. It's just, how? How do you not lose utter feeling in that at a certain point?
Many people don't see the hours, days, weeks, and years it took for them to get to that point.
Oh, yeah.
And it starts with just a choice to just get started with puppetry. And we try to, preach that to young minds that if you want to engage in this form of storytelling, it takes a certain level of commitment. And everyone here has, signed on to that. And whether it be a test of our physical commitment, our mental commitment, our investment of our imaginations, we're all on board. But once you do, you become a stronger person inside and out. And what you saw in that reel, and I'm familiar with that, you just marvel.
Yeah.
Because there's no reverberation. It's just that arm, they're there and it exists in that moment. And it's the small things. It's those details that matter.
Because I keep referencing more filmic versions of puppetry, are there specific things that distinguish, like apart from what we've already talked about, of course, which we hit on a little bit, stage puppetry versus film puppetry and how that is approached?
So for Wishing Chair Productions, we've recently, within the last few years, had the opportunity to venture more so into filming some of our projects. The pandemic allowed us to create individual content that could be utilized, whether it be through MPL Universe or the Wishing Chair Productions Puppetry Troupe Facebook page or through NECAT. And one of the advantages is that, just as you mentioned, we're able to lock in certain takes. We're able to repeat certain things.
Sure.
It's given us the opportunity to fine-tune and capture the very thing that we want. And the live performances, we live in the moment. The audiences are very accepting of things that happen, whether it be a string breaking or a control bar flipping out of our hand, or if an audience member gets so excited. There is that exchange of energy that we love from live performances because the audience is just as much a part of the experience as us performing it for them. And we feed off of that as puppeteers. When they're rooting for the characters, if I'm embodying Hansel or the narrator, or if I'm Anansi or any of the other characters, if they like you or if they don't like you, it kind of propels you to go further and more and invest yourself into the very thing that they are experiencing and feeling. You don't get that when you get into film. Not to say that we don't know that it exists and we try to carry that with us, but we try to have a nice blend of the film and the live experience wherever we go.
Performing live, there's a little bit of an adrenaline rush, right?
Yeah.
Because if strings break or whatever, there's a part, well, how in your mind as a puppeteer, how will I recover from this and will the audience be accepting of it? When you're doing it for film and video, just shoot it again and you edit it and you can present a flawless product via video, right? But there's still the unknown in a live performance. And I think both of them are fun from a puppeteer perspective, because if you feed off of the live performance and the audience energy, or presenting something that you've taken hours to create to tell a story, both of them are equally rewarding, just in different ways.
Yeah. I saw a concert that a friend of mine was performing in recently where the venue was such that it was like a seated audience at a rock show. So strange. And it's such that the audience was essentially dark for them because of the nature of the stage lights. And so where normally they expect a certain amount of like screaming and being able to hear people singing along, none of it. So they just had to rely on instinct and know that like, we're going to play our show the way we play our show. I just need to pull the energy that I would be getting from the audience out of myself this time.
You know, well, you've been doing this for 2+ years. I'm knocking on 19, and what pours into my life as a puppeteer is the experience, and that in the experience of the presentation and not knowing what I'm walking into, but having a comfort level to be open to whatever happens. You know, audiences, it's been my experience that audiences, they will have different reactions to the different presentations, whether it be if we're performing for seniors, whether it's adults, people that like puppets, or people that are afraid of puppets. You know, the reactions are different. But it's always, as an artist, very rewarding to have an open heart, an open mind, and an acceptance, and not be scripted all the time. You know, these are living puppets. You know, they move freely. We're working in concert with them. And it's not just a collaboration between myself and the other puppeteers, but it's also with the characters that we perform with. They're just as much a part of it as well. And a lot of times, sometimes they have a say in how the performance is going to go. But it's always refreshing when we have an audience and when we have that exchange of energy to be able to say, even though this might be the 332nd performance of this show, this is new for them. This is a new experience. This is something that is going to impact them in a special way. And for me, not to treat it as if it's the 100th time I've done it, but this is something that is going to be live and it's going to be brand new. And it's been that way ever since I started. Every single presentation that I've ever done, I've always felt as if it was the first time for someone new. And when you have that, I believe you're taking great care in presenting something that is really, really, really special.
Yeah. And anytime you make anything that is to be consumed by other people, that's always a balance, right? Of like the verisimilitude of the creator versus thinking about who it's for and what their experience is going to be. Is like you have to be true to yourself as an artist to a significant degree, but you can't ignore the audience.
Absolutely. You know, that very thing, it's funny. I had a conversation with an individual about 3D printing. You know, would it not be just easier just to 3D print a puppet?
Sure.
And my feeling is that you lose the master's touch. You know, you lose the imperfection. People, they connect to things that are real, and things aren't perfect. So I find it rewarding to be able to say, this is something that was crafted by someone's hand, someone's investment into what this looks like. And because there was an investment on the back end, this payoff is going to come out in the actual presentation because someone's going to see this and get connected to it. Not to say there's nothing wrong with 3D printed puppets, but there is something different.
And where my mind immediately went was if you had something that was very obviously 3D printed, that could in itself create a sort of juxtaposition of like if you want that puppet to be perceived differently.
That is true.
I'm thinking about there's a miniseries on Netflix. It's a stop motion Pokemon short called Pokemon Concierge. Very cute. It's just Pokemon at a beach resort for an hour. It's delightful. And there are steel type Pokemon, many of them, and a couple of them that were featured in this short. I looked at them and went, that looks 3D printed. that like I can see the rings of where it was being built layer by layer, and so that created a textural juxtaposition between a steel type Pokemon or like a fuzzier like whatever else that's based on an animal. So the idea of different sort of textures in that way, I think, can be utilized really easily as a shorthand, right?
Absolutely.
I think that speaks to the craftsmanship and being an artist, right?
Yeah.
So there's a look and a feel to Tishner's puppets. There's a look and a feel to some of the other puppets that we have that were developed or created by others. And if you have something that is, I don't want to say perfect, but able to be mass produced, right? It's not going to have in my estimation, it's not going to have the warmth, you can put character in the face, but you can't put character in the being, in the puppet itself, in the item that you're using to tell the story. So I think sometimes their advantage, in my opinion, I think 3D printing is useful, but I don't know that I would use it often. I think relying on, I think you're missing the master's touch, if you will, the artist's touch.
Yeah.
If everything you do, unless that's the look you want.
Yeah.
Right? I think there's a little bit of magic involved in something that's been molded and sanded and created or sewn. Yeah.
I'm thinking about the sort of philosophies that I've heard people talk about when they make puppets, and this idea of making something that looks like it is alive, and like the strategies to do that. And the ones that I always think about are, again, mostly filmic. The idea of there's a reason that so many Muppets are fuzzy and very fuzzy, because that way when the arm stops moving, there's still a little movement to it, right? There's still a facsimile of life there, like Cookie Monster's eyes that just will spin eternally. Are there strategies that y'all employ in puppet making to have that facsimile of life?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know. I guess the greatest compliment is when or if an audience will say that seemed real. And they may not be able to give or provide language as to why, but we kind of know why, because it's the things that we do.
Right.
One of the things, especially if a character is not so much involved in a specific scene as it's been blocked, it's really important that when I would go through training sessions with team members, it's important that, especially if you have 1, 2, or even probably 2, 3 other characters in a scene, that the character listen. If I'm speaking as a puppet to another character, the other puppets should not be looking off in the other direction unless it's intentional that they're like trying to ignore. But it really does fall back on basic acting principles.
Yeah.
That if someone is speaking to you, then you need to listen. And then as soon as, of course, that finishes, then you need to give a reaction. But even as a character is listening, you don't, as a puppet or specifically a marionette, you don't just sit still. Because you are in complete control, you can shift your weight. You can pretend as if the character is breathing.
Yeah.
You can move the hands. It doesn't have to be large, grand gestures. One of the, I believe, more difficult things is to be subtle and graceful with the puppets. It's to pull on a string and just to have a gentle tap. Because small children do that. If I'm playing Hansel or even Gretel, kids tend to tap their feet. They tend to move. They tend to shift. Being able to embody that so subtly while a character is listening, or to shift your focus with the head, that is something that elevates the puppet to a living being, which makes it real for the audience. But you have to prepare and plan to do all of those things.
Yeah, the intentionality of either that character being present or intentionally not being present in that moment.
Absolutely.
But I imagine the difficult part is also making sure that those don't become like the focus.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And we keep mentioning Hansel and Gretel, but as you can imagine, in the story Hansel, I'm not giving anything away. Hansel, he's captured by the witch, and there are moments between the witch and then Gretel, but in the same sphere of the scene, there's Hansel. Hansel, he's in this cage, and it's possible for the puppeteer to just leave him there in the cage by himself, because the attention should be on the witch, it should be on the girl, but he's there. He's in the room. There's so many small, subtle things that you could do. If he's in a cage, he's uncomfortable. Now, granted, he's not trying to break it down, because at that moment, he's almost succumbed to his plight. So he is still in the cage. He's still moving. He can do things. He can still live. He can still breathe. He can still watch. But as you said, he's not drawing focus. Those are the subtle, beautiful things about storytelling and puppetry, that if you understand focus and intention and an objective, you can craft some exquisitely beautiful things on stage through puppets.
I just want to say that storytelling aspect that you were just talking about, the subtlety, it happens, we see it in video and in television. The editor or the director will drop in reaction shots, right? So the same thing has to happen and you were talking way earlier about clowning and some of physical things, right? The puppet, we're trying to make it believable and alive. And while we're sitting here talking, we're nodding our heads, we're gesturing with our hands, but we're not drawing focus. It's still how you act as a person. And you're trying to make that puppet feel like it's a person. So it's going to maybe scratch its head or, bring his hand up to his chin or something like that. But it doesn't draw focus from what else is happening on the rest of the stage. But he might be thinking over in the corner just enough to convey this, to help convey the story for those who are watching that puppet. Kind of looking over like, what's he doing? Oh, he's distressed. So you see it every day in, like I said, video, but we're breaking apart the video and just making it a wider view for the audience.
And it's what I love about it as well is that sometimes, and this is the special thing for puppeteers, there have been times when I've found myself even lost in the puppeteering that's happening. Like, there is such a cohesion and an understanding between the puppeteers that as we're watching, and please understand, we're watching it from above. We don't, we train to, and we practice to have the correct angles from the audience's perspective so that it looks like they're looking at each other. But even, it feels as if we're in the room. And the audience is, they're being given a peek at what's happening in this room, but we're closer than they are. And there have been times when I've watched and the moment has felt so real that you really just feel honored and privileged to have witnessed something that just existed within a brief, beautiful moment. I won't say that it gives you tingles, because then the tingle will go straight through straight through the strings or anything. But when those moments happen, it's very, very beautiful, and it makes being a puppeteer worthwhile. It really, really, really does. It makes you proud in a lot of ways that you are able to, and it doesn't have to be the whole show. It could be a moment, as you said, hitting a specific mark. And even if half the audience saw it, somebody saw it, or somebody witnessed it, or even I witnessed it, and it poured into my life as the puppeteer, that's special.
And it was part of the tableau, even if it's not noticed, of like it's there to be not noticed.
You were just talking about the moment, right? And if you see it as the puppeteer, but it took me a very long time to relax from the technical and the mechanical part of it and see that moment, and then turn my attention to the audience to see if somebody else noticed it or if that drew somebody else deeper into their story or their focus on the story or that moment on the puppet stage, to see if they connected with it. And sometimes that's the really cool perspective as a puppeteer, is when you can take your focus away from the stage, still performing, see that moment, and then look out and see the faces of the audience members and watch them smile, watch them laugh, boo, whatever it is, because then you know as a puppeteer that you've done your job and they are invested in what you're doing. And so it took a very long time for me, but that is one piece that I find very rewarding, and I try to make a mental note to not stop performing, but stop mentally and just take a second and look out into the audience and see how they are gauging, how they are reacting to what we're doing on stage. And that to me is one of the most rewarding pieces of what we do, or what I do. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I would only say that if there's anyone out there curious about how to make puppets, the power of puppetry, give it a try. You won't be disappointed. There's so many different forms out there. You don't have to have tons of money. You don't have to have money at all. You can transform almost anything with, and if this is for children, with parent permission. Don't. I'm not giving you free reign to start making stuff out of it, but with permission.
Don't go raiding the coat closet.
That's right.
Please.
Don't start. You're like, well, he said no, but you can engage your imagination and create something that's unique to this world because it was made by you.
Yeah, and experiencing that weird freedom of being something that is you but outside of you.
Absolutely.
Like that's that almost like avatar of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to add one more thing.
Yeah, please.
Just because as I look around in the room here that we're recording in, I have the most silver in my hair and in my beard. And I just want to say, and I will admit to my age, I'm 61. And I want to tell the listeners, first of all, you're never too young to start, and you are never too old. And that's coming from, somebody with a little silver on their chin, because quite honestly, this is the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done in my life. And you're never too old to learn and to learn something new. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I guess I'm the old dog.
And that's how you stay young, is learning new things.
Absolutely. I will tell you, one of the major things that jumped out at me about Walt was his eagerness, his willingness to play. I can't tell you how important that is.
Yeah.
You have to have that, or else it's an uphill battle. And his willingness to jump in makes the experience and the job fun. You don't have to be a puppeteer, especially for us here at the library. We can train you to work the puppets, but you have to bring that love of story and that willingness to play and to get lost. You do that, you're going to be in a good spot.
And this is something I think we've hit on every episode I've recorded of this show so far, where this show is ostensibly about art and creativity. But in every instance, we have hit upon this idea that you have to foster joy within yourself. And that's as much as creativity feels like it's often wrung out by sadness or anger or grief, those are real and valid. The way to keep it going and to keep you going is to find the joy. Well, thank you all for joining me. It was a genuine pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation.
And if anyone wants to check out the copious puppetry programming in the Nashville Public Library, you can head to the events page on the library website, library.nashville.org. check out everything we do here, whether it be the Puppet Truck out in the world at various branches or our bespoke theater on the second floor of the main library. And of course, this podcast is brought to you because of the Nashville Public Library. So, whether you're in Nashville or beyond, go find your public library, get a library card, and use it. Because the best way to support the library is to let it support you with all the various things you can get there. I bet some of them will surprise you. Thank you very much.